The Mustang Mach-E is a serious EV from Ford. It comes in two different versions, a standard range with 68 kilowatt hour battery or an extended range with an 88 kilowatt hour battery. That's bigger than what you're going to find in most other mainstream SUVs. There's also two different options available. You can have a rear wheel drive or you can have an all wheel drive versions too. Now you won't find any Ford badges on the outside of the Mustang Mach-E either. Instead, you get that famous horse on the front of what is a blanked off grille. But Ford is keen to tap into that muscle car heritage, so you get this very sculpted bonnet, these sleek headlights that you can see, and as you go to the rear of the car, you'll see some more nods to that famous muscle car. At the back of the car, you've got this sloping roofline that comes down on a very sharp cut-off bluff rear end. These taillights are just like the sort of design we're used to seeing on a Mustang muscle car, and again, you've got that horse logo on the back so everyone can see that you're driving a Mustang. The boot opens to reveal 402 litres of space, and that can be increased to 1,420 litres when you drop down the rear seats. And if you need a little bit more space, underneath the bonnet on the front, there is a frunk with 81 litres of storage capacity. Mustang nods aside, Ford has been pretty smart about how it has designed this, and you can see that inside profile here. It's a very much a sloping, sporty SUV, and that's partly because of this whole section being in black. It brings down that roofline. It gives the impression of it being lower than it actually is. And then along the side here, you see it's so clean because there's no door handles, traditionally speaking at least. You have these little buttons here that you press, and on the front here there's also a door handle, so as you push that button, the door will electronically pop out. You've got a charge port here on the left side. Standard models get 115 kilowatt DC charging. The longer range version will get 150 kilowatt charging as well. Good for between 10 and 80% charge in 38 minutes with that higher rate. You've got Mach-E badging on the side here, and then you've got these 18-inch wheels. You can get bigger, but to be honest, these are probably a good balance between image and maximizing comfort and adding a few more kilometers to that driving range too. Like the exterior, you won't find any Ford badging on the inside here. You do get the Mustang badge on the front of the steering wheel, and there is some Ford switchgear. If you've been in other Ford models, you may notice them on the steering wheel and the stalks here and the window switches, but generally speaking, this is quite a different cabin to what we typically see from Ford. You get quite a nice, neat digital instrument display here. It's quite slender, looks very crisp. It's very simple and easy to read. It just gives you all the information you want in a very easy fashion. You can just glance down and see what you need to have. But the real star of the show is this massive 15.5-inch touchscreen display. It runs Ford's Sync 4 infotainment system, and it's a major step on from what we've seen in previous Ford models. You can do various things like have all your different shortcuts, pair your phone, have sat nav, find your next charging destination. You can also wirelessly connect Apple CarPlay and Android Auto there as well. It's a very neat system. It reacts very well. It looks pin sharp. You've got your climate controls down at the bottom here, heated seats, heated steering wheel functionality as well. All quite easy to use. There's only one control on this, which is the volume control, and it actually appears as if it's just stuck onto the front of the display because you have another part of the display behind the center of that button. It is nice to use, it's very simple to use. Probably the only gripe I'd have is that although this appears to look like it's made from knurled metal, it is kind of a little bit of a cheap feeling plastic, and that's the same with the drive selector here on the center console. Again, not quite as polished or robust and premium as you might expect when you initially look at it, but again, it's a rotary controller. It's very simple to use and it doesn't take up a whole lot of space here. You've got your electric handbrake here, and then because you have everything controlled in this large screen, then you have this extra space between the two front seats. You've got two decent sized cup holders, you've got USB-C and USB-A charging ports, and a wireless charging pad here on the base as well, along with more room next to that. And then below that you have an additional layer of storage. So there's lots of room inside here to put all your little oddments away and have them easily come to hand. You also have more space underneath the armrest here. There's also a 12-volt power socket in there too. There's a lot of space in here, particularly legroom. I am 5'9" and the driving seat is set up for my driving position, and as you can see, I have quite a lot of knee room in the back here, and actually the way the seats are shaped, it actually adds to that because they're curved outwards from me. So it's very easy to sit upright here. I have a reasonable amount of headroom. I've still got a couple of inches of headroom there, and the only thing I would probably say is that because of the way this roofline comes down, I don't have a massive amount of visibility out the side window, but it's not that bad. It doesn't feel that claustrophobic in here. Even though this car doesn't have the panoramic glass roof, it does have a light headlining, and that just makes it feel a little bit brighter inside. But the seats themselves, the outer seats, very, very comfortable. I can get my feet just about underneath the seats in front. You've got pockets on the back of the seat backs. You've got a shallow enough door bin here, but you could leave a drinks bottle on its side in there. Back here, you have one USB-C and one USB-A port as well, so you can still keep your devices charged up. The middle seat doesn't have quite as much legroom because of how that center console comes back a little bit more, and it is a little bit higher up, although it's not massively firm. So even when you do have to sit in there, it's not that bad. Although really, if I was sitting in this middle seat, I'd only want to be doing it for a short journey. The other thing as well is that you do have a little bit less space. Now, even though you can have an all-wheel drive Mustang Mach-E, the floor is completely flat because of the battery design. So that is a bonus back in the Ford's favor, because you don't lose out so much in rear legroom because of that. Both of the rear seats get ISOFIX points. Now, although they are covered up, it is very easy to reach them and lock in a child seat there too. There are a few things you'll notice when you start driving the Mustang Mach-E. First of all, the driving position is good. You sit a little bit higher up, you can see that bonnet stretching out in front of you. There's decent visibility outwards. The A-pillar is a little bit on the chunky side, but it's not anything that's going to be a major issue. And even rearward visibility is actually pretty good, despite it being quite a shallow rear window. The fact that the middle headrest sits a little bit lower down adds to that, and you do have a decent reversing camera as well, which helps when parking. The side mirrors aren't the biggest in the world, but they do a reasonably good job of showing you what's behind you at a glance. The steering feel is really good here. Other Ford models have a bit of a reputation for being quite forced in self-centering and always feeling a little bit maybe overweighted. This feels really spot on. It's when you start to push the car on a little bit more though that its chassis begins to shine through. The suspension is admittedly a little bit on the firm side, but it's very nicely damped. It's well set up actually in this car. And you can start to thread this through faster corners with a degree of confidence. And it's clear that this is a car that Ford is trying to appeal to real driving enthusiasts and not just the mass EV buying public. Now let's talk about those drive modes. There are 3 to choose from in the Mustang Mach-E. You have the active setting, and that gives you a balanced set of performance with this car. So the steering is quite neutral, you get a good delivery of power, and everything is nicely balanced. Then there's a whisper mode. Now, as the name might suggest, this makes things a little bit smoother. You could infer that this is effectively like an eco mode, just makes everything a little bit calmer. Steering is slightly lighter, and it's a bit quieter as well. It doesn't have the active sound propulsion pumped into the cabin. But then, if you want to have something a bit sportier, there is Untamed. Now, we have to give Ford credit for being brave and how they've approached this car. Rather than calling it a sport mode, this is a Mustang Mach-E, so they call it Untamed. And that gives you a little bit more sound propulsion. It adds just a little tweak to the steering setup, and it does make it quite sporty. Now, not everyone is going to want to buy a Mustang Mach-E to drive around in Untamed mode. This is a car that will appeal to some people because it has larger batteries. This particular one is the smaller of the two. This is a net 68 kilowatt hour battery, and so far, according to the trip computer, on motorway driving it has been averaging around 19 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. That does decrease slightly then when you move into mixed urban use, and in those conditions, so driving around the city, a little bit of maybe dual carriageway, shorter work, things like that, it's averaging between 16 and 17 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. So that's not too bad. And again, having that strong regenerative braking, particularly in urban driving, means that it's always going to claw back a little bit more power. So that is a plus. Having that larger battery does mean you will be able to do longer journeys with ease, and you do have faster DC charging. So again, you've got up to 150 kilowatts on the larger battery. This one does 115 kilowatt peak charging. So if you do need to stop off on a long journey, filling up at something like an Ionity or fast charger, you're going to be able to get a good bit of charge back into that battery, at least up to 80%, with relative ease and in a timely fashion. That's our review of the Ford Mustang Mach-E. Hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please do hit the like button and tell us what you think in the comments below. Do you agree with Ford using the Mustang name in such a way with a car like this? It's definitely proving to be a polarizing thing. If you've enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, and if you do that, hit the notification bell. You'll be alerted next time we upload a video review too. If you want to know more about this car, head to our website, it's linked below. Thanks for watching.